Welcome to our Globalization Final Project. This is a brief introduction meant to give you a brief overview of the past of globalization so that you can further decode where the present and where the future of globalization might go. It's going to cover some past events and trends that may be necessary in working towards our understanding of the future. So, some things we should know. Globalization is complicated. It's not just one time, place, or event. It's the trends that connect them. For organizational purposes, there are 4 streams of globalization that we will be looking at. There is culture, economics, politics, and technology. And it's important to note that there is no clean distinction between any one of these streams and the others. They all tend to interweave and work together to create what we now know as the trend of globalization. So, how did we get here? So, pre-modern culture, the trend has always been towards increasing cultural connection, and that could be for better or for worse. We see it for worse in books like Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, in which an Igbo's tribe falls apart due to the influence of Christian missionaries, and despite the work being fictional, the actual harms that occurred in the book are no made-up piece of fiction. But we also see it in the best of times, such as world fairs, which bring us modern marvels like the Eiffel Tower, and allow people to see what other parts of the world can create and the best in people. We also see it in pre-modern technology. Technology has gotten a lot more complex and pervasive, and it's gotten a lot more accessible. It's not just for the rich anymore. It floods our society and it dominates how we live now. And it's led to an increased standard of living, but only in some places. The US is a very wealthy country. What it's like to be poor in the US is not what it's like to be poor in Burkina Faso. And it's not the same to be rich in the US as it is to be poor in the US. It's completely different lifestyles, and part of that has to do with how technology has spread unevenly and how technology is used by these classes. For example, oil and the machines that this industry has created greatly benefit the rich in the US, but it can wreak a lot of havoc on people who rely on agriculture, both in the US and abroad. Similarly, if we're looking at an older example, the printing press is commonly associated with helping the middle class and the poor better access reading materials. It was no longer just an activity for the rich. And pre-modern economics, there's a shift from domestic growth to international economies now. This is something that's undeniable, and we see it in Trump's trade wars, and the economy is now one of the biggest factors that must be addressed when we're voting for a leader. Recently, the US and some other countries have begun to withdraw, but it's not just something that has started with Trump. He is a symptom of the problem. So here we have some examples of the past. Over on the left is the age of exploration, one of the first mass times in history where we see people of all different countries engaging with each other in a global economy of trade. However, that also led to a lot of, economic inequality and a lot of harmful effects on societies that were being leached off of by some of the wealthier countries. And on the right, we see an example of the Industrial Revolution, one of the greatest examples of how the West modernized as fast as it did, but also one of the primary factors in why it was able to put down now some of the poorer countries that exist today. So, pre-modern politics. So after the establishment of sovereign nation states, there's now been more connection between countries. And there's been rapid growth since the end of World War II. You see this in the example down here, which is the Potsdam Conference, which occurred towards the end of World War II. And the agreements shaped there and still exist today. And up here, we see the example of the Peace of Westphalia, which is a primary event in the establishment of modern nation states. Thank you.